trouble is that, though, I'm in favour of careful, gradualist, painstaking improvement of society. It doesn't make a good tweet, does it? It's hardly going to go viral. Is that kind of philosophy just not? I mean, it's a correct one, certainly, but is it exciting enough for our age?
Well, I got to admit that it doesn't make for a good TikTok video to say, let's be careful, responsible and well thought through. But there's got to be a way that we can allow substance to prevail over form, and help people to understand that some things really are just too important to condense into a tweet or to insist be able to be communicated via the glib tones of social media.
Now, look, in the few moments left, I think we should get our heads out of the cloud and talk about some real concrete policy issues. Childcare, you wrote about this in the Australian Financial Review this week, unfashionably arguing that it's time to really take a good look at how much we're subsidising childcare, and particularly, the way subsidies are given to people earning up to $500,000, I think, a year. We've got to come back to the fact, is this policy working? Is it doing what we want it to do, which is to get women into the workforce and so forth? It's not working, is it? So we do have to think again.
Yeah, look, there were some changes made under the last government that were about taking away the penalty that families felt about going back to work once they had a second or third child, to make that second and third child's costs much lower. Labor's policy going into the election, though, was to have families earning well over $500,000 receiving increases in their childcare subsidy. But we already as a country spent $8.6 billion on childcare subsidies. Labor are going to put another $5.4 billion into it. And I think we need to recognise that despite these enormous subsidies, every time they get bumped up, the fees also go up with them and families don't feel any better off. We need to, I think, be willing to step back and almost reevaluate this system from first principles. There's no reason why we should be, by definition, shoehorning families into centre-based childcare when it's not necessarily the most efficient way for all families. And we should be more willing to allow families to mix and match the amount and types of care that they need to reflect the values, the work choices, the preferences and the financial constraints faced by all of these different types of families. And they can range from tax deductibility of centre-based childcare as an alternative to subsidies that's much more efficient, right through to considering making tax deductibility of nannies. For instance, if you're a shift worker or, let's say, a junior accountant or lawyer, the idea that you can do the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. model of childcare drop-offs and pickups is just ridiculous. It can't be done. There's also, I think, a lot to be said for recognition of those families that make great sacrifices to make one parent able to care for people at home by being able to opt into family taxation rather than taxing each working person as an individual. We can show some recognition for the sacrifices that are made from which society ultimately benefits in the lower cost associated with that child as they grow. There's lots of options we could have on the table here, but Labor seem intent on pushing everybody into this centre-based, institutionalised model that is, let's face it, a place where unions can get their hooks in and they can get their hooks into the education of children earlier and earlier. That's not necessarily the best thing for children, for parents, or for people who work in the sector.